Hey guys, it's Hank here. And so have you ever wondered which country or which region has the largest average penis? Well, there's actually this paper here that we're going to break down today, which sought to find out exactly that answer, which region has the biggest penis size on average, but it's also done in a scientific manner, not self-reported data. So guys, before we go any further, I want to know in the comments, which region or which country do you think has the biggest and smallest penis size? And, if you'd like to, why? But honestly, just put in which country you think. I'm just very curious to know if you were right based on the end of this video. So guys, the purpose of this study in the first place was to try to get an idea of average penis size based on the different regions of the world using standardized measurements like stretch flaccid and then flaccid measurements, because honestly, erect measurements are pretty hard to discern. So in this study, I'll put a breakdown here, but they did what they call a meta-analysis where they compiled all the different studies from the different regions and basically synthesized as much data as they could from those. They used 33 studies with almost 37,000 samples included in the data. The key thing with this paper is that unlike other papers, this does not include self-reported data. This only includes data including measurements made by actual medical professionals in either the clinic setting or in some studies, which this is a little shady, but like prior to anesthesia, like they would put these people under anesthesia for surgery and then measure their stretch flaccid like once they're unconscious. I'm sure that the people consented to it, but once again, it's just kind of like, that's a very interesting way of doing that. And so guys, what did they find? Well, if you look at this table here, the average erect length for the global average was about 5.45 inches. Now, this is significantly bigger than the Veal et al. MI normal nomogram, which actually has the global average at about 5.19 inches. Flaccid length is about 3.63 inches. Interestingly, the global average for the actual flaccid stretched length was about 5.06 inches. Now, I think this is due to the fact that they had a much smaller sample size for erect data and a much larger sample size for the stretch flaccid data. And so I think the stretch flaccid data is much closer to the actual global average, which is actually closer to that 5.19 inches seen in that Veal et al. MI normal data. Now guys, here's where the results get spicy, where they actually break down region by region. So if you actually look at the Americas, the average stretched penis length is 5.7, Eastern Mediterranean 5.1, Europe 4.96, Africa 4.96, Western Pacific 4.56, and Southeast Asia 4.2 inches respectively. And guys, similarly, when it comes to actual flaccid circumference as well, if you look in the Americas, 3.83 inches, Europe 3.69, Southeast Asia 3.6, Eastern Mediterranean 3.53, Africa all the way down second from the bottom, all you BBC fans, at 3.46, and then Western Pacific is 3.31 inches. And guys, you can see that data reflected beautifully on this graph where you actually can see where the regions correlate with the actual sizes that I discussed. And so, for example, in the Americas, it includes everything in North and South America because that's one WHO or WHO region. Whereas if you look at like the continent of Africa, you can see that it includes mostly like the sub-Saharan Africa, but you can see that it's not just the entire country, because some of that is actually included in the Eastern Mediterranean data. So guys, what are my key takeaways? First of all, penis size does vary dramatically based on what region you are. And in their calculations, this difference was essentially statistically significant. Now with that, guys, I've made like so many papers talking about, I even have like a paper about like, oh, the BBC myth. But guys, like the BBC myth is just that. No, there's no actual data which actually shows that on average, like especially you would think Africans, if they're really like African Americans are really that much bigger, that actually race correlates with their size. And even in this data, guys, for both the stretch flaccid length and actually the like flaccid circumference, I mean, who the hell cares about flaccid circumference? But the point is that those lengths are not amongst the biggest. You would think if the BBC myth was really true that they would be amongst the top, at least tied for the top. But now America's, are we staying on top? Similarly, guys, there is a stereotype among like Asians and Southeast Asians having typically on average smaller penis size. I don't know whether it's unfortunate or what, but that is reflected in this data set. But the point is there is differences based on the different regions. So guys, one of the key takeaways is that the average size is not as big as you think it is. So many men think they average either stretch penis or erect size is going to be somewhere around 6 inches. And I don't know where that comes from when all of the data that we have shows for the most part between 5.2 to 5.5 inches. And guys, in this study, what you saw was that when we're looking at stretched length, even in the biggest group, the Americas, the size was only about 5.7 inches stretched. But then when you actually look at the data with the actual average erect length that was measured, once again, we're talking about 5.45 inches. So nowhere near that 6-inch marker. Some of you are still going to be in the comments, oh, I don't believe this data. Like, all of the comments help the algorithm, guys. But like, I just don't know how many times I have to present this data before you guys actually believe it. And guys, I think a very important takeaway is that there is this really dog shit study, okay? And I'll put this little image up on the screen so you could see it now, that claims that like, oh, men from Ecuador have on average a 7-inch penis. And then just under them is Congo with 6.8 inches. Guys, that study is dog shit and it's self-reported data and it needs to be eliminated. But you can see the different averages on the screen right here, but it in no way correlates with what they actually find when they have measurement, especially when you're looking at the continent of Africa. And guys, what are some of the flaws of this paper? Well, one of the major flaws was actually the measurements that were done, okay? In this paper, they used a wide variety of measurements. Now, for flaccid, it was basically non-bone pressed, meaning what you could visibly see is what they measured. They did not push it into the pelvis. When it comes to flaccid circumference, it was obviously mid-shaft flaccid circumference, okay? But when you're actually talking about the stretched flaccid length, that it was a mix between bone pressed and non-bone pressed measurements when it comes to stretched flaccid length. Because there was so much variation, you have to take these numbers with a grain of salt because some of them are including fat pad and some of them are not including fat pad. And you can see that example here when we're looking at some of the literature. It can show you some of the variations in the techniques that they used. In closing, everybody from the Americas, baby, stand up. We in here. This data proves that we are the biggest, okay? Whether you're from North America, South America, Central America, it don't matter. We in here, bro. Walk around proudly with your pants down and your head held high. If maybe you're on the smaller side, or maybe you've just always been insecure about the size of your D and you want to get bigger. Well, there is real data, including my Hink trial, guys, that where I published, where I actually had guys that underwent normal penis enlargement techniques, which I talk about in my enlargement course, which the link is in the description below. But you can see for yourself that these guys, on average, in 6 months, gain 1/2 inch in length and 1/4 inch in girth. Nothing is behind a paywall. It's for free. The link is in the description. You can go, you can read my study, you can see it for yourself. And if you're interested in pursuing enlargement at that point, feel free to. But remember, guys, you're more than the size of your D. There's nothing wrong with self-improvement, but you are enough just as you are. Just be the best version of yourself. All right, guys. Peace and love.
Dr. Hink got the plug on the health, yeah. Got you thinking about your wealth, yeah. In his office, no stealth, yeah. Pinnacle of that below the belt, yeah. Checks and balance, he's managing. Working miracles, no damage. Got you covered, no panicking. Steady calm. In the clinic, no vanishing. Yeah, with Doc Hink, it's the way back.